Hi, I'm Amber Stobbs and this is my story.
We saw on Monday that you released your story to the public for the first time, and you spoke in depth about your experiences of anxiety and severe panic attacks. Today, I guess I want to delve a little bit deeper into your experiences and give you the opportunity, Amber, to speak about this on camera for the first time. So you must have had some really, really dark days going through this, and especially going through this alone for as long as you did. What got you through those days?
I did have some really dark days, and the things that got me through, I think, and it plays into my story, is I'm quite independent, and I'm sure we'll touch on that in a little bit, but I lived my life not wanting to let people down, which I think played into this, but then I almost thought if those dark days got the better of me or something was to happen, then I'd effectively be letting my family down, and it's a bit of a twisted way to think of it because you've got to look out for yourself. It's not a nice experience for yourself, but I guess loved ones and the thoughts of that, and kind of thinking back to the good times, I think that I'd been in really good places before mentally, and I almost just had that the belief that you know there was a bigger purpose than me just going through this, and I guess for lack of a better word, like, you know, ending the situation sooner. I do believe that panic attacks can hit people differently. I've had many different levels. I've had them at many different times and different cases. I don't even know if I've had two the same. I've had ones that I would call smaller in the range of things that I've been through. So I've had starting to feel a bit dizzy, short of breath, chest pains, and I've had that, as well as the room seems like it's getting a bit smaller. Definitely can't breathe now, because, you know, sometimes it's almost as if I'm breathing through a straw, if that makes sense. So you're still getting stuff in, but it's closed off, and you can feel that tightening of your body. But then there's other times where that stops, and I've had that where I've really been in a panic of I can't breathe anymore. It's almost like a suffocating feeling. I've spoken to some people about it. I know that someone was in the middle of a panic attack and they took themselves to the hospital and said, "Oh, I think I'm having something's up with my heart, something's up with my chest," and things like that. And I wasn't too aware in the beginning either what they necessarily are. So I think they hit people differently. They can come in different strengths. I was training, for instance, in the top or the second league through this time. I was training at what should be the really elite level in the women's game, whilst having a panic attack. So I'm at training. I'm thinking I've got to keep, either I've got to keep my spot in the squad, or I want to play this weekend, be in the starting 11 and stuff like that. So there's a massive difference I felt between having a panic attack at home and dealing with that, and you're okay. But then you have to think of when I was on the pitch, I was having a panic attack, but I was still trying to compete at the best I can. I was still trying to go get those sprints in. I was still chasing after the ball, trying to concentrate on what's going around me. Like if it's a passing drill or it's a 7v7 or 11v11 game, I can't breathe very well, but I'm trying to stay concentrated and train the best I can. And in hindsight, like I've said before, I think in the case of just saying, right, I need a second, sharing with your team, I need a second, and just stepping out and controlling it and using the tools that I've learnt to control it, and then stepping back onto the pitch would have been a complete different case. But instead, like I just said about breathing through a straw and the chest feelings and trying to keep the tears in because I don't want people around me to see it, my coach is saying, no, this is the way to do it, or girls, stop there, no one's understanding this, and me thinking, like, okay, breathe, like look away, like stuff like that. It's very difficult to have a panic attack and train at the same time. It's difficult to have a panic attack whether you're sitting on the couch or as relaxed as you can be. It's never a nice time to have one.
Amber, what were the reasons behind you wanting to keep it a secret for so long?
I think it was a case of protecting those around me. So, and I've worked through that quite a lot. And as you know, Jordan, that I've done the counselling level 2 skills course and done a lot of education on myself about these these things and done a lot of reading and learning, and for me, I think it was a case of protecting those around me, but eventually after reading into everything and kind of getting more knowledge behind it, I think when somebody tries to protect those around them, ultimately they are forgetting about themselves. And in a conversation I had with someone which was quite honest and brutal, it was a case of, right, you want to protect everybody around you, you want to keep it to yourself, you want to go through this yourself, and you don't want to hurt those around you. But to be honest, if it goes past a certain point, then the hurt is going to be much worse on those around you. If I didn't get help or I finally didn't speak up and share, I think they would have been in a worse case of hurt, and that, it's unthinkable what could have happened, and that isn't protecting those around you. And so that's one thing where you're protecting those around you, but they could end up in a worse situation, losing someone or getting a serious phone call from someone. And then the other is, when you are trying to protect those around you, you're not looking after yourself. The weight that was lifted when I just told one person, it was like, wow, okay, like that wasn't the worst thing in the world. This is definitely going to help, and I'm not all alone. And the reason I was all alone is my own choice. I've got an amazing support system. I've got a fantastic family, fantastic friends. So I think it was a bit of a surprise to them, and it was a bit of a surprise to people when I say, I didn't tell anyone, I kept it to myself. And they're thinking, well, I thought your family was amazing and stuff like that. And my family are. It's nothing to do with that. It was a kind of a way of thinking that I'd got into, that it may be better if I just kept it to myself.
If you could go back then, would you do anything differently? Would you speak to somebody sooner?
I'd definitely speak to somebody sooner if I went back. But I think I've learned a lot on the process of going through it myself, that now fortunately I'll be able to help other people that may think that they have to go through it themselves and not share. So yes, for my own case back then, I think the journey could be a little bit easier, and maybe, I don't want to say shorter, because I don't want people to think, right, she's healed, this is it, kind of dusted off her hands and the work there is finished. I think that this sort of stuff is a work in process that everyone should go through, mental health and being aware of it and working through things, and even everyday life. Even if I've had a good day, I use some of the tools that I would still use on a bad day, to keep yourself in check. It's not a case of, right, that's done, that's dusted, okay, like I'm good. And it's not a case of finally being cured or something like that. I think the case of, I would have definitely told somebody sooner, because I think it would have eased things for myself, eased things for those around me, and getting help sooner isn't a negative thing. I think that's something I've massively learnt. But now I look back and I don't regret it, because I feel like I've really gone through it and gone through the emotions that someone out there is probably going through now, that they can't reach out to someone and all these things. Everyone's different. Every case is different. I'm not saying that I've lived the same as someone else, or I'm exactly or the same as what that person's going through, but I now really want to use my journey, my experience, my knowledge and kind of everything that I went through to try and help other people that may be feeling similar, or even if it's not similar, but feeling something, and just try and encourage people to share.
How did the people closest to you miss all of these signs? How did they not know that you were going through this?
So that's an interesting one. I've shared this article, and the amount of messages and support I've got has been unbelievable. But the amount of apologies I've got as well, people saying, I'm really sorry I didn't pick up on this. I wish I could have done more to you. Like I feel I'm really sorry. And that for me is like, I don't want anyone to be sorry. I don't want anyone to feel like that, because to be honest, I became professional at hiding it. And if I'd spent a tenth of the energy I spent hiding it, masking it, trying to keep it all a secret, on working on myself, then this could have been a much shorter, or the dark times would have been less often and stuff like that. So I don't think it was a case of people missing the signs, because I generally think I perfected not showing any. And you have to remember as well, during these times, one of them, I was in America, so I was away from my family. My family know me very, very well. I do think that if I lived at home, I lived in America for 6 years of this, and if I lived at home, they would have picked it up. They would have asked me. They would have maybe seen me kind of isolating myself. That was probably the biggest sign, I think. But when you come up with every excuse and everything and put that mask on and tell people, no, I'm absolutely fine, I really have to rush off, they're not going to think anything of it. And I managed to keep it a secret, which I'm not proud of, but it's just a reflection of me rather than those around me missing things. And as I said, I didn't live with my family, so they couldn't have picked it up. And I kept moving. I moved. So I lived in America, but after 4 years I moved, and I lived with someone else, and then I lived with a host family, and you can keep the things a bit separate there. And then I came back and I was at Reading for a year. And then I was at Everton for a year, West Ham for a year. If I was at one club for a little bit of time, I think people would have picked it up a bit more. But I was almost, for different reasons, moving around, and I think it made it a bit easier because it's, hi, I'm Amber, and the mask goes on, and it starts again.
So your first conversation with your parents about how you were struggling, how did that go? How did they react?
At the time, I sent them an email, which I think now, even saying it, I do have a little prang of, sent your parents an email, like the people that have raised you, people that have supported you, like an email, and I can't think of how they felt reading an email of how I was feeling and stuff like that. But the one thing I have taken is, if there is any way that anyone out there can tell someone, and if it is an email, if it is a text, yes, it might not be the greatest thing for them, but after that initial kind of message is sent or email is sent, that's when the conversations really start opening up. So I sent them an email. I sent it to my mum, dad, my brother and my nan, all at the same time. And this email took me, it wasn't a case of, right, I can't put it in words. It was a case of, right, you've decided you're going to do that then. How many hours did I start typing the message and then taking it away? And how many times did I start doing that on my phone? I thought, this is going to be a little bit longer than a message. So again, being myself, I opened the email up really lightheartedly. I look back at it now as well, and I think that was really casual. I still was not realising the severity of what was going on. So it was like, hi everyone, just sending this email because it's a little bit longer. Don't want you scrolling through 5 screens on your phone, but just to let you know. And then the email went on, and pressed the send button. I was in my house in Everton alone. I thought, okay. And again, at this point, we're talking 6 years after my injury at Hofstra in America that I felt really knocked me back. I sent the email and I thought, okay, right. And then the messages after a while, and obviously it's an email. They're not like, they're all getting them at different times. They're all doing stuff. So, and then after that, it really opened the door to having honest conversations with my family. I had phone calls with all of them and kind of explained it a little bit more. And that's how it really went. And the reaction was, again, unbelievable support. Yes, there was tears. Yes, there was people apologising that they didn't see, me apologising that I didn't share sooner, and stuff like that. But it was the way that it was easiest for me to do it, and it opened up the conversation, and then it allowed me to share much more than just the email kind of content.
When did you finally start to feel like yourself again? What was sort of the time frame from the beginning to the end?
I've recently started to feel myself, to be honest. So if we're talking from that first year at Hofstra, I went out to America in 2010, and that's 10 years of a journey to finally start to feel like myself again. And I think this week, the Mental Health Awareness Week, and sharing this story, this article, and getting it out there, I think that's allowed me to, for the first time ever, to feel like I can be me now. Because, conversations are going to change with people. I know that I won't have to hide anything, or I won't have to put a mask on if I'm not having a good day. Honestly, since Monday, I felt a relief of, okay, people know now, and I'm starting to feel not myself. I'm starting to feel almost a better version because I'm fully accepted. I'm fully ready for people to hear this and ready for people to read about it and stuff like that. The last time I would say, and I was reflecting on this the other day, that I felt like I didn't have any of this, didn't have any of the stress or the worry or the hiding or anything like that, would probably be when I was about 14, and now I'm 27. And the message here is that it's taken this amount of time because I did keep it for a secret, and I did try and work through it completely alone. That was before I started speaking to counsellors and telling people. It was just completely me, and now finally I feel a bit different in a positive way.
Do you look back now on all of that time and feel sad that you went through that for so long, or do you feel more proud that you got through it?
One thing about me is I have extremely high expectations of myself, and I'd be lying if I didn't look back and feel sad. I don't necessarily look back and think I'm proud of, getting through it and stuff like that. I look back now and think I'm quite proud that I'm sharing my story, if that makes sense, because I hope it will really help people. But there's definitely a lot of sadness, and speaking to you now, I've had a positive sort of week, and it's a positive thing. But there's definitely times where I have been sad, and I thought, wow, I would not let anybody go through this. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone either. And the fact that I didn't share it with anyone, and I've gone through it, and I think it was very harsh on myself not to share. And I think that's where the sadness sits, not sharing sooner.
So a lot of people listening to this are probably going to be thinking, gosh, how can I spot this? How can I spot this if one of my mates or one of my friends is going through this? Are there any signs that we could be looking out for? Or is it just completely a case of being there if they ever needed to talk to us?
I think the main thing is just checking in with people. I think there's a difference between saying to someone, how are you doing? And they say, yeah, I'm fine. And then you saying, how are you really doing? Or I've heard plenty of podcasts, I've had conversations with my friends of saying, listen, I feel like you're not. Is there something you're not telling me? I think it's really hard to go on that thin line between pushing too far and then being supportive. So I'd say, like, from my experience of hiding, the things would probably be, are they distant? Are they isolating themselves in any way? So, for instance, I lived in a player's house at Reading. So at one point there was 5 of us, and we'd all have a laugh, go to training and get in the same car and stuff. It got to a point where I wasn't feeling great at all, and I would sort of say, right, I'm going to drive by myself. Oh yeah, I'm not ready yet, so I'll catch you later. And I was ready, but I wanted the girls to go and drive in themselves, and then me to take my own car so that I could get there, train, and rush off and sort of be alone again, to be honest, which is quite sad. But the things like that is someone isolating, someone's mood. You can tell sometimes you can tell when people are stressed and down, and I think sometimes there's times that I've maybe snapped, and someone's thought it's to do with something completely different to what it is to do with, if that makes sense. So if you are noticing a change in someone, or in any way, in their mood, in their type of communication, in the frequency and stuff like that. And I'm not saying, like, if someone's just having a break or taking a few days to put their phone down, especially in these times, because of isolation, I'm not saying, right, there's something wrong with everyone and your friend can't just say, no, I'm fine and not be fine. But I think it is, if someone is struggling, or I heard something the other day where someone said to someone, yeah, I'm not doing too well actually, and then someone just kind of brushes it off, and their friend says, you'll be all right, and I've had moments like that where I thought, right, maybe I'll just quickly tell someone, I'm actually not feeling good today, and it's like, oh yeah, really? No, me neither. And it's not a case of, oh really, what's wrong then, or do you want to talk about it? It's a case of, oh yeah, me neither. And then you think, I just tried to kind of put a branch out there, someone didn't grab it, okay, done, I'll deal with it alone. I think if someone tells you that, yeah, they're not having a good day, or yeah, they're not feeling great, then definitely offer to be kind of that ear that they can talk to and just be there.
Do you ever fully recover from something like this, or do you just learn to manage it?
I'm never going to stop working on this side of me. It's taken me to some really dark places. It's changed my life in multiple ways. And I think a lot of people may have read that article and thought, that's amazing. Like, wow, she's really come through. And I have really come through. My life has changed. I'm definitely in a different place, but I'm still, going to counselling fortnightly. And even with this current situation, COVID-19, I'm having them virtually because I wouldn't want anything to regress in all the work that I've done. I think it's really important for people to keep talking, and not a case, because I've done it before. I've done it before where I've had a really good, 12-week stint of everything and thought, okay, I'm cured. I don't need anything anymore. I'm going to go back to living how I want to and living the normal life. I don't think there's a way to say that I am 100% healed. I think it's a thing of I'm in such a better place than I was, but I'm going to continue to work on it.
So how do you expect future teammates and managers to treat you after knowing about your story? Should they treat you the same as they would treat somebody that's coming in that has had a previous physical injury? Or is it something that they should not treat you anything differently for?
I personally would prefer don't treat me any differently, but I think there's a lot of work to be done with how players are treated and the way that clubs are looking after people or checking in on mental health. So you have the medical screenings before, so new signings get that sort of thing. Is there something that we need to put in place for kind of a mental health screening? I'm not talking to delve into deep, but really look after every player in the same way. So yes, you're signing a player. If they are signing me, they're bringing a player on board similar to, like you said, having a bad previous injury. But I am still, and this is what I kind of say to people, and this is one thing I didn't want to, this is another reason that I said I used to protect who I tell and things like that. And before Monday, before putting this article out, before sharing this news, I'm Amber Stobbs, and I'll act the same way. I'm the same way as I was. And then Monday's come along, and I'm still exactly the same person. The only thing that might change is people's views, people's ideas, the way that people think they might need to communicate with me differently, but there's really no way to treat me, there's no reason to treat me differently because I'm exactly the same as I was before you knew, if that makes sense. So I think that in whole, I hope people don't treat me differently, but I hope that teams have things in place for not just me, but for anyone, whether they are dealing with stuff or whether they aren't. And I think that it's conversations that need to start opening up and happening. And I know they are sort of taking place in the background of, right, we need to allow people to speak more freely. Like I'm here, fortunately Palace have been really supportive, and I've shared my story through them. And since I've signed, I've been very open with them. But there's never been a time that I've gone to training and said, I can't train today. I feel like this. I know that if I did, they would support me, and they have that sort of thing in place for their players.
Amber, how do you feel after sharing your story?
This is the moment I will say, probably the first time I say it out loud as well, I do feel quite proud. And I think that if anyone looks at it, if you look on the social media, if you look at the things going around this week, but especially the reaction to what I've shared, I've never felt anything like it. I've had people messaging me from that I went to school with that I stay in touch with a lot of people, but I haven't spoken to for years, and they've said, listen, I can't believe, and even now it's given me goosebumps saying it, but I can't believe you went through this. You are so strong, and you're amazing for sharing it because it's helping loads of people. And I've gone back and said, like, thank you so much. And even one person said, I've just shared this with someone at work that's going through a tough time at the moment. I hope this can help. I've had loads and loads of inboxes of people thanking me, and there's nothing to thank me for. I've just maybe made it a little bit normal for people to speak about it, but the support and the reactions and the responses that I've been getting this week, and kind of the message of, do you know what, I haven't thought about it like this, you've just made me reflect on myself, and thank you so much, and things like that, they have honestly been unbelievable. And I think it just kind of gives testament to the way that people do receive these things now. I lived in years of fear of people's perception of me changing and how will people react, and this these messages and everything like that just prove that it's really not a bad thing to share. And I am quite surprised with just how far it's gone in people seeing it. Hopefully it can reach people more, but the main thing is, like, it's so positive to share, not only for yourself but for those around you. I have a support system now. I've shared, and again, I'm not just sharing and saying my story's over. I knew that to be in a place to share, I need to still work on things. There might be, things after a certain interview or after the article went out, some individuals might think, that's quite raw, that's quite a lot, and it might hit them. I have all those things in place, so I think sharing has just been proven that it's so positive, and hopefully that main aim is to help people.
Amazing. I guess it's a more accepting world than we originally thought, right?
Definitely, and I think this for me has shown that more than anything. The world that people are really accepting. I haven't had one bit of bad feedback. No doubt there might be someone out there but might be a little bit confused or not, understand it as much, but I haven't had any negativity from this experience of sharing.
Last question from me. So I know that you wanted to share this story to help people. So what would be your message to an athlete like yourself who might be going through a similar experience or who might be relating to your story?
So my advice to anyone, and this includes athletes, is do your best not to go through it alone. And if it is one person that you really trust, or that you feel comfortable with, then share. Genuinely getting on the phone to, it doesn't matter if it's a stranger, but getting on the phone and saying it out loud and speaking to someone, I think that's the first steps. Like anything, is sort of accepting and acknowledging, and then it will become easier to start the journey of working on yourself and hopefully getting to a place that's better for them.
Amber Stobbs, thank you so much for sharing that story. I'm sure you've helped so many people.